engage directly with residents about the policies, projects, and decisions that affect their lives. Whereas the city of Champaign has demonstrated a strong commitment to digital engagement as decisions that affect their lives. On social media. Whereas the city of Champaign has demonstrated Facebook followers increased by 92.78% from December of 2020 to June of 2025. It saw a growth from 4,700 members to just over 9,000 members. And while Instagram saw an extraordinary 329.87% increase from 1,500 followers to 6,448 followers in the same period, underscoring the community's growing interest in staying connected and informed. Whereas the open and accessible nature of social media platforms provides unique opportunities for building trust, fostering two-way communication, and increasing community involvement in local government initiatives. And whereas in today's digital age, cities like ours have embraced the power of social media to bridge the gap between government and citizens, offering a space for meaningful dialogue, collaboration, and connection. And whereas the evolution of digital communication continues to shape how we operate, listen, and serve, allowing governments to be more responsive, efficient, and inclusive in their outreach services. With that said, I give as mayor for the city of Champaign proclaim June 30th, 2025 as a National Social Media Day. Congratulations. Congratulations. Only you get this taken. Only council comes this way, right? There. 9,000 followers. Just Facebook alone means that 42% of our population is following social media.
Sorry.
I'm a statistics guy. If you wanted to know, compared to other cities, most other cities run between 4 and 6. Right, 4.
Yeah. Oh, I'm taking up. Sorry.
I know now.
Okay, 3, 2, 1.
I'm blinking.
Thank you. So thank you, Mayor and City Council members for recognizing us tonight. This is the first time we do this, and since the department was created. So we want to extend our sincere thanks to you guys for the recognition and the highlight in the value of community engagement and as our city's, ongoing growth. With your continued support and investment in community engagement, just reflects the understanding of how essential connection, communication, and transparency are in serving our residents. We are especially grateful for your acknowledgement of the time, effort, and creativity it takes for us to create, develop, and produce content that keeps our community informed, inspired, and involved. So as we continue to grow, this recognition reinforces the importance of our storytelling, outreach, and relationship building growth through our digital platforms. Thank you for creating the space for our work to thrive. And I'll give the mic to Ms. Nevaeh if she has anything to add.
I really don't have much to add. I think Rachel touched on it. We do produce a lot of content, and just by the follower increase, our community does want to stay involved. And so, again, thank you for recognizing us and allowing us to allow our work to thrive.
Very good. Thank you, ladies, very much. Council, anything you want to add?
Congratulations.
Well, it's always nice to see you at all the events and all that and everything. So thank you for the effort that you put into it.
Congratulations. Thank you for your hard work.
I just want to say thank you, Rachel, for you're able to put a pink bow tie on me. Thank you.
Social media,
Wonders of graphic design.
social media is such an interesting platform, just in general. You can find negatives from it, you can find positives from it. And I think a lot of what is posted and done is really that twist is how do we get that positive and space out there and really keep people informed. If you think about Shafter and you think about the paper, and by no means am I discrediting anything with the paper, I've been around it most of my life. But the paper publishes, I think, somewhere around 1,500 papers per week between two cities. We're seeing content provided just on Facebook alone of over 9,000 per post, and sometimes we're seeing multiple posts per day. So if I would do the infamous Starbucks post, right? Let's just have a little fun with that one. That was how many views on that one?
I don't know, probably close to 200,000.
Yeah, I thought it was
Fire-
north of 144 last.
Yeah.
So 150,000 views for a second Starbucks and good old Shafter. Social media works and it helps get the word out there for a lot of things that we're doing. And I would say thank you ladies very much because we do notice that we see that content on a daily basis, morning, afternoon, night. You guys are consistently there. And I know staff utilizes that same resource to get content out. So thank you. Thank you for all the hard work you guys put in.
Thank you. And there's always room for improvement. So just throwing that out there.
There you go.
Thank you, guys.
All right, with that said, we're going to move into public comment. Public comment is for any person wishing to speak on any item on the agenda or on any matter within the subject matter jurisdiction of the city council. Speakers are invited to speak from the podium and address the city council. Speakers are limited to 5 minutes unless additional time is needed for translation. Please state your name and address for the record before making your presentation. Public comment is open. Yes, sir.
Good evening, Mayor, council members, and city manager. My name is David Mack. I live at 425 Cross Street, lifelong Shafter resident, and the father of fifth generation Shafter residents. And I come before you not as someone against growth, but as someone deeply concerned with how we are growing. After reviewing the city's current planning documents, including the Lerdo Highway Vision Plan and the latest community survey, I feel we are rushing towards expansion without first ensuring we are building a congruent, cohesive Shafter. The survey itself, while a step in the right directions, seems to present choices with an implicit bias towards rapid development. Options like more housing brings more shopping suggests a predetermined path rather than open dialogue. That concerns me. If you look at the data in the market guide, we're talking about adding 25,000 jobs, 13,000 housing units, and nearly 30 million square feet of industrial and commercial space along the Lerdo Highway corridor. That's not just growth. It's a full-scale transformation of the city of Shafter. And yet I don't see an equal focus on infrastructure resilience, traffic impacts. The new Starbucks there's going to be people turning left without a suicide lane, which is going to cause many traffic accidents and safety concerns for our great chief. What about school capacity? Are we working with Richland to plan for those houses? Or are we just planning on Wonderful, putting in another charter school, taking more of our choice away with government through our local boards? Or preserving the most important factor, the small town character. It's what makes Shafter unique. We all want better retail, more dining and opportunities for our kids, but not at the expense of thoughtful planning. We cannot afford to become a commuter suburb for Bakersfield or an overflow zone for logistics without preserving what has made Shafter a standard bearer of integrity, family, and community. My question is simple. Why the rush? Let's slow down just enough to ensure our expansion doesn't outpace our values. Let's elevate the Shafter standard, not dilute it with unchecked growth. Please revisit the tone of the public engagement materials. Please make space for cautious voices. And most importantly, let's make sure Shafter grows with intention, not just acceleration. Thank you.
Thank you. That was well written, sir. Would you email a copy of that to the city clerk? If you don't mind, yeah. I appreciate that. Thank you. You said a lot, and I'd like to actually capture that a little better than my horrible penmanship. Thank you. Any other public comment items? All right. Yes, ma'am.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing me to speak. My name is Corey Edgman Corrales. I live at 356 Cross Street. And my family moved here when I was 8 months old. And while I'm not as eloquently spoken as Mr. Mack that just spoke, I do have a concern of my own. I have a bachelor's degree in mathematics, and I have been a math teacher for 18 years. But I would like to speak about the Shape Our City survey that is currently posted on the City of Shafter website. For years, I have taught statistics standards to my students, and I think that the survey is biased. And I say that because I love Shafter, and I want to make sure that that you are receiving the information in a way that can actually be looked at without any skew to the results. I know that the survey is just one of many steps in the process of this 20-year plan that the city has put together, and I completely, with my heart, appreciate that the city has given us the opportunity to contribute to the planning of our great city. But like I said, the survey is biased. The manner in which the survey has been distributed is biased, as well as the way the questions are being asked. According to SurveyMonkey, survey bias is a deviation of feedback based on influences by the surveyor and respondent, and it occurs when survey methods systematically favor specific outcomes, leading to results that inaccurately represent the target population. Inaccurate data representation is when your survey results do not reflect the entire population if you don't include underrepresented groups. So I found the survey because I was scouring the city website one evening, and then I noticed the frequent advertisements on it on the social media platform. And while, yes, 9,000 and 6,000 respectively, that is a lot of people. That's not everybody. There's a big chunk of people that are not on social media, and some are in my family. And when I asked, hey, have you done the survey? They said, what are you talking about? I'm sure that they're not the only people that are in that same position. So if I say this because if we're really trying to find out what the people of Shafter want, then it needs to be random, like a random sampling should be done in a survey, or we need to go out and somehow get in touch with the people that are not on that social media so that they also have a chance. And I know you've said before, everybody's voice matters and counts. And so I just wanted to talk about that. The second thing that I wanted to address is the questions. The questions seem to pigeonhole respondents into choosing an answer that is on the opposite end of the spectrum from the other option that was given for them. Usually in surveys, there are rating scales on these types of things, and there's not so much content in one answer. It might be sort of itemized. I just really feel like the data that's going to be given is going to be skewed, regardless of what side of the aisle someone is on. And I really think that if data is going to be looked at, then the survey needs to be free of bias so that the data is not skewed. So thank you for time.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. We are always open to suggestions, by the way. If you have suggestions on survey opportunities, we're always open to it. Because we do recognize that this is a really interesting survey, and I will say this. Staff has done a really good job on trying to figure out a way to get it out there. Social media is a large platform, and we recognize that. But they are also hitting events at the same time. So whether it's from a First Friday event or from Cinco de Mayo, they actually set a booth up so you can go and at least do that. Because we recognize not everyone's going to be on that platform. But then at the same time, we also realize that's still not going to capture everybody, right? I don't know if there's really a silver bullet that does it all. But if there's other suggestions, we're always open. And all the ears would be definitely listening because we want to make sure everyone's voice does get heard in that. So thank you. Thank you. All right, any other public comment item? All right, hearing none, seeing none. Public comment is closed. Council, looking to you for council announcements. Mr. Espinoza, I'll start with you this evening.
Okay, on the 6th of May, I attended the First Fridays event downtown, and it was a nice event. A lot of people, a lot of different activities, car show, a couple of motorcycles there, some race cars there. It's pretty nice. It looked like it was well attended. On Monday, the 9th, I attended the oath of office for financial analysis to Kyle Diddy, and I'd like to welcome him aboard to the city of Shafter. I hope nothing but good things for him while he's working here. On the 12th of May, I attended the Mothers Against Drunk Driving Law Enforcement Prosecutor Recognitions Award, and we were recognizing one of our own, Officer Christian Cejudo, who has received the MAD DUI Award for leading department and DUI arrest in 2024. So I'd like to say congratulations to him. Saturday was Flag Day, Sunday was Father's Day, so happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there, and that's all I have.
Very good. Councilmember Alvarado.
You know, the only thing that comes to mind right now is that my daughter had a baby this morning, and so it's
Congratulations.
my 7th grandchild, and I'm excited. It was my daughter Jessica, her first daughter, so pretty excited.
Congrats.
Thank you. Thank you.
Congrats. All right, Councilmember Prout.
Yes, I did attend, same thing as what Pete was talking about here was the oath of office for Kyle. And Kyle's in the group tonight too. And I didn't know if they were going to introduce you, but we welcome you again. He's working in the finance department, starting out new for us, and we're very excited to have him on board. And then also I attended the MAD event that was held in Bakersfield. And I think most of you know it's Mothers Against Drunk Drivers. And we did recognize one of our officers who scored the highest in picking up DUI people in Shafter. And so it was exciting for him to be there as well as his mom and dad. And they recognized so many other officers from throughout the county. So it was really good. And then they went into the DA's office and the probation department and all. And it was really, it's a nice event to be able to recognize people that serve in our community and making success. And yet we like to cut those numbers. So let's hope that we can continue to attend, and we welcome and congratulate our officer.
Mayor Pro Tem.
I don't have anything. Thank you.
That was easy enough. The only thing I will add to it, we had a ribbon cutting last Thursday for, I would say it's not new. They've probably been in that building for almost a year now, but for Wonderful's Amenity Center, which is also a training ground for a lot of the industrial automation team that goes out there, as well as it sounds like they're getting connected with BC and I believe bringing in a new medical field to that group. So a lot of stuff happening out there, and a nice little ribbon cutting to see everybody out there. So apologize I couldn't make the MAD event.
And we
but
couldn't make yours.
yeah, I
at the
know.
same time.
They're literally happening at the same time. So we were split a little bit. And then I know we had our special city council meeting last Thursday. So again, nice and busy, and it's been a nice few weeks. With that said, we're going to move on to our consent calendar items.
All right. I have conflict with number 11. So I'm gonna abstain from voting on that item.
Very good, sir. All right. With that said, there are 19 items that we will read from on the consent calendar. I will do a brief read through of these 19 items. Let me start off here. Number 1, approving payroll. Number 2, approve the general checks. Number 3, accept treasurer's report. Number 4, approval of minutes. Number 5, approve resolution of commendation for the 2024-2025 Shafter High School Girls Varsity Track and Field. Number 6, approve the purchase and installation of 2 secure HID door panels by Teltech to be located at the east and west entrances in the total amount of $11,298.07. Number 7, approve professional services agreement with JAS Pacific and CSG Consultants in a combined amount not to exceed $400,000. Number 8, approve the purchase of one 2024 Ford Transit 350 gas-powered van from AZ Bus Sales in the amount not to exceed $102,000 through the Cal Act Cooperative Purchasing Program using either the TIRCP or the ZTEC CP transit grant funds. If ineligible, they will use the TDA funds. Number 9, ratify the Public Works Director execution of the program participation agreement with Wilden Energy Solutions for the replacement of up to 7 water heaters at city facilities throughout, through the PG&E Government K through 12 program. Number 10, approve project plans and specifications for the East Tulare Avenue Pedestrian Improvement Project and authorize the solicitation of formal construction bids. Number 11 is the item Mayor Pro Tem will be recusing himself from, which is the acceptance of the dedications of easement for street and public utility purposes from Shafter Free Will Baptist Church. Number 12, authorize the Public Works Director to sign the renewal agreement with Urban SDK for traffic data and analysis for a total of $30,000 for a 2-year term. Number 13, approve an agreement with BSK Associates for special inspection and materials testing services at North Shafter Community Park in an amount not to exceed $50,000. Number 14, adopt Resolution 3023, adopting a list of projects for fiscal year 25-26 funded by Senate Bill 1. Number 15, adopt Resolution 3024, initiating proceedings for the annual levy and collection of assessments within existing city landscape and lighting districts for fiscal year 25-26. Number 16, adopt Resolution 3025, approving the engineer's report and declaring intention to levy and collect assessments within the existing landscape and lighting districts. Number 17, adopt Resolution 3026, authorizing the filing of an application for congestion mitigation and air quality program and committing the necessary local match and stating the assurance to complete the project. Number 18, adopt Resolution 3027, authorizing the filing of the application for regional surface transportation program funding and committing the necessary local match. Number 19, introduced for second reading by title only, waiving further reading and adopting ordinance 768, which is amending and restating chapter 2.68 of the Shafter Municipal Code relating to the city's purchasing and public bidding procedures. Questions, comments, or concerns? Otherwise, I'm looking for a motion and a second on the consent calendar, please.
I think we're done, huh?
There's a lot going on there.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Alvarado, a second by Councilmember Prout. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Alvarado,
Yes.
Prout,
Yeah,
Rivera,
Yes, but I
Espinoza.
abstained from number 11.
and Gibbon.
Yes. Mr. Espinoza, roll call.
Yes.
Thank you. All right, for clarity's sake, I know that got a little messy there. That is a 4-0 with the 1 abstain from number 11. Everything else for a 5-0 for the remainder of the consent calendar items, just for the record. All right, thank you very much. Moving on to our public hearing items. Item number 1 in our public hearing is for a zone code amendment number 25-21. Alan, I see you walking up here, so I'm assuming you get the pleasure of this one, sir. All right.
Alrighty. Good afternoon, Honorable Mayor and City Council members. Next slide, please. Oh, thank you. It'll work. There we go. Sorry about that. Shafter zoning ordinance does not define any zoning regulations currently for smoke shops, tobacco stores, smoking lounges, or similar land uses. The city has no specific zoning policies to restrict the establishment of such uses, and therefore has no ability to protect sensitive land uses and the community from any potential impacts that may arise from proximity to smoke shops. Staff is proposing that the zoning ordinance be amended to prohibit the establishment of such uses in all zone districts. Last year, the city was made aware of illegal gambling and commercial cannabis sales at one of the tobacco retailers in the community. Enforcement actions were taken against the operator and the illegal activity stopped thereafter. That incident caused a review of the city's current smoke shop, hookah lounge, and tobacco store regulations. That review revealed that the city does not have specific regulations governing how or where such uses may operate, and precedents had already been established allowing their approval. On June 18, 2024, the Shafter City Council adopted urgency ordinance number 756 to establish a 45-day moratorium temporarily prohibiting the establishment and operation of smoke shop businesses and tobacco stores throughout the city. Under the moratorium, the city would not approve any business license, permit, or entitlements for potential new operators. On July 30 of that year, the Shafter Council also adopted urgency ordinance number 757 establishing a 10-month and 15-day extension of the moratorium, which just ended today on June 17. During the time that the urgency ordinances were in place, city staff were directed to study the impacts and to develop comprehensive zoning regulations for the establishment of future smoke shops. Due to various negative impacts on health and the increase of property and violent crimes that result from proximity to smoke shops, staff were directed to propose an amendment to the zone code to prohibit such uses throughout all of the zoning districts. Studies done in other cities revealed that smoke shops were likely to violate legal requirements in order to increase sales even to minors. Their existence in an area is also associated with neighborhood crime since they service and tend to attract at-risk individuals such as those with criminal histories. Proximity to tobacco stores has also been tied to higher smoking prevalence in a community since the quantity of stores can influence the perception of product availability and ease of access. The city of Shafter has taken similar action in the past to prohibit all medical marijuana dispensaries and commercial cannabis activity throughout all the zone districts. Section 11.290 of the Shafter zoning ordinance regulates personal, medical, and commercial marijuana-related land uses. Staff are now proposing that this approach be taken to prohibit smoke shops in the same manner. So the zone code amendment would not challenge or prohibit smoke shops from continuing their operation if they were legally established and existing already. So I just want to clarify that it's not a retroactive prohibition. Any existing smoke shop that, was permitted prior to the zone amendment would be considered a legal non-conforming use. What that means is that there would not be any alterations or expansions allowed, but the city would not pursue a revocation of that permit unless, a violation of applicable zoning regulations or state law called for such to be done. So staff's recommendation at this time is for the council to introduce for first reading by title only and waive reading of ordinance number 766, amending the Shafter zoning ordinance to prohibit the establishment of smoke shops, smoking lounges, and tobacco stores in all zone districts within the city of Shafter. Any questions?
All right, folks, very good. This is a public hearing item. This is the public hearing for Zone Code Amendment number 25-21. At this time, public comment time is open. Like to make a comment for or against that item, by all means, find your way to the podium. Hearing none, seeing none. With that, public comment time is closed. Council, questions, comments, or concerns? Hearing none, seeing none.
I got it. Alan, how many do we have in town right now? Just the one?
We just have the one, yeah, at 701 Central Valley Highway, the Shafter Tobacco Store, if I remember the name correctly. Yeah.
Okay, so just one. Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, very good. With that being said, I am seeking a motion and a second for the Zone Code Amendment number 2521 to introduce for first reading by title only and waive reading of ordinance number 766, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Shafter approving Zone Code Amendment number 2521.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Okay, I have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Olvera, second by Councilmember Prout. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Alvarado,
Yes.
Prout,
Yes.
Olvera,
Yes.
Espinoza,
Yeah.
and Given.
Yes, very good. Thank you. We do have another item on the docket for public hearing. It is for zone change number 25-78. Alan?
Thank you. All righty. So the property owner of 351 and 347 Central Avenue is requesting a change in zoning designation from downtown commercial to general commercial. The property is a half-acre site located on the west corner of Central Valley Highway and Central Avenue. The immediate effect of the zone change would be changing the colors of two downtown properties on the Shafter zoning map to reflect the new zone classification. The reason for the zone change request is to facilitate the future development and operation of a business that will include a drive-through. The applicant has concurrently submitted an application for a conditional use permit to be considered by the Planning Commission at a future event or a future date in the event that the zone change is approved by the City Council tonight. As of now, drive-ins and drive-through businesses are completely prohibited in the downtown commercial zone, but they are conditionally permissible in the general commercial and neighborhood commercial zones. The primary purpose of the general commercial zone district is to provide sites for commercial uses which serve a large segment of the population with a wide variety of retail, wholesale, service, and office uses. The proposed rezone of the subject property to general commercial would identify the site as a potential location for a new range of commercial uses to be proposed and introduced to the community's downtown area. This vicinity map here shows where the affected site is in relation to the rest of the downtown. It's outlined in red. Currently, it says vacant and unused. Please also note the proximity of the site to other existing and proposed drive-through businesses within the downtown area, two of which also access off of the Central Valley Highway. Those are outlined in blue on the slide, and all of them are less than a quarter mile away from this project site. This is a snippet of the existing zoning map. The parcels with the peach color are designated downtown commercial zone, while the yellow-orange color represents the general commercial zone district. As shown on the screen, they exist right next to each other. The zoning request would just change the color on the zoning map from downtown commercial to general commercial and potentially allow a wider range of commercial uses. So the only decision, again, requested from council at this time is whether the base zone of the site should be allowed to change or not. The property owner requested that this preliminary site plan be included in today's presentation to give council a bit more information as to what the end design may be. The proposed layout and design of the site will be reviewed further during the conditional use permit process, and the proposal will of course be subject to any necessary conditions of approval and technical design considerations. The property owner currently is proposing a Valley Strong Credit Union with an accessory drive-through component. The proposed rezone could turn a vacant site into a contributing and thriving downtown business that is beneficial to both the property owner and the community. The surrounding properties are still commercial, so changing from one commercial district to another commercial district remains consistent with surrounding properties in the area. Additionally, the existing drive-through businesses in the downtown area indicate that the city will not be operating outside of established precedents, nor be zoning in a manner that would result in an illogical land use pattern. Per the Shafter General Plan, highway-oriented commercial uses were planned to be located along Central Valley Highway, and a drive-through business would generally match that intent. So staff recommends at this time that the Shafter City Council introduce ordinance number 767 for first reading by title only and waive reading of ordinance number 767 approving zone change number 25-78.
Very good. This is for a public hearing in regards to zone change number 25-78. At this time, public hearing or public comment time is open. Any public comments for the zone change for number 25-78? All right. Yes, sir.
Again, good evening, council, mayor, manager. Again, I just ask that we not make such conditional use or not make the change in zoning, as I believe that a drive-through so close to Central Valley Highway, we're already putting the Starbucks there that will have one. And I know that they're talking about offshoots off the alley or as well as Central, but the width of those streets and alleys, I don't think there's a long enough queue of any possible backups to any drive-throughs would be possible. And so I'd ask that you not change the zoning.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, any other public comment item? Sir?
Good evening. My name's Michael Hare. I live in Bakersfield. And we're the applicant here. As far as this drive-through goes, the drive-throughs that go along here with those dump right out into Santa Fe, the Central Valley Highway there. Ours will not dump into any roads along there. Ours will be, our credit, where we drive through will be just the way the land is right now through the alley and then on Central Avenue. So there's no impetus that we'd be going out onto Santa Fe at all. So what we found is we've had a number of people, fast foods and so on, Panda Express, all that. And quite frankly, historically with the COVID and so forth, these type of businesses really suffered. And they found that for anyone to go in there, they need a drive-through. And this particular bank that wants to go in, we have the kiosk there right now. It's done well. They want a building here, but they also need a drive-through, very similar to Mission Bank. Over here, as you drive in town, they have a drive-through. So I think it's, we're not impeding on to Santa Fe at all versus the comments that the previous gentleman made.
Yes, sir.
So if there are any other questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay.
You want to wait? We'll wait till after,
Okay.
if you don't mind. Any other questions in regards to the public comment time? And Dr. Hare, you might, if you would like, you can stay around because once we close the public comment time, we let council have their questions. They may have questions for you.
Sure, that'd be fine.
Anyone else for public comments? All right. Hearing none, seeing none, public comment time is closed. Council, questions, comments?
I have a question. You submitted something here for a drive-in for the bank.
Yeah, that is for Central Valley Credit Union, yes.
And how do we know that that's going to be exactly the project that goes in versus something else?
Well, what we have, first of all, we have a letter of intent by them that they are gonna go in there. They already have a kiosk there, and we have a signed letter of intent from the bank that the valley that's gonna go in there and so forth. Should it not go in there, I suppose we'd have to come back if we had another project there and go through the same process, which
Yeah.
wouldn't be a problem.
Well, that's my concern because I would rather see things that are open on just the downtown. And the other part that bothers me the most is the fact that we don't even know what we want downtown. It's not really a vision or a plan as to what we can do. As you know, brick and mortar isn't quite the same thing today as we've had in the past. We're gonna have to somehow think of ways that we're going to get people engaged downtown. And I like services, and I was hoping that you could come up with something that doesn't have to come in off of Central Valley, especially at that corner. It's very busy all the time. And even when the stoplight is on, the cars back up in there.
Well-
And so, I really do have a concern with it.
I'm concerned, the entrance into that will not be off Santa Fe at all. It will be back where it's been for years and then through the alley.
Yeah, but
And-
the alley was an alley. It's not a drive-through for people to come in.
Well, it's been used under that circumstance for a long time. As far as, your other concerns, I can tell you that this bank, we've seen some of their buildings in Bakersfield. They're very attractive. And you'll get an opportunity if you'd like to see the architecture on that before that's done, and should you not like it. The building will be about 10% of the total area there that we have. 10% of that will be the building. 90% of it will be landscaping and parking
In the drive.
and so forth. So it's not something that we're gonna just put a big building there and leave it. And I would prefer if we can, be up to you folks, as we've done along Lerdo there, with maybe along Santa Fe, is have a 2-foot little block wall along there, which I think looks good, and it'd be up to you folks whether you want it or not.
Yeah,
What-
like a 2 foot high,
Pardon?
like a 2 foot high?
Yeah, you can see it along in front of Fast Strip, not Fast Strip, but along Arco AMP and all along there.
Oh, I know what you're talking
Yeah,
about. Okay.
and we've redone that over the last 2 or 3 years with new landscaping and so on. So we probably do something along those lines. So, but we're only occupying 10% of the property with the building. So I don't think it's, we're not trying to build a great big building on a small piece. And they are closed, they are closed on, they're from, I believe it's from, oh gosh, I think 9 to 5. And on Saturdays, they're open from, I think, 9 to 1. So there's not huge traffic. So like if we had a Starbucks or something there where there's going to be constant traffic in and out, that isn't going to be the case with this. And the other thing is, I got an opportunity when we were doing the demolition of this structure, which was a illegal structure as far as non-reinforced masonry building and a basement and so on that was really dangerous building. I got an opportunity to talk with some of the neighbors that are along there, and they were all concerned. Are you going to put a liquor store in? Are you going to have another restaurant there and so forth? And I got the idea, well, maybe we should put something that's different, yet would get people to come to that area, and that's exactly what Valley Strong's bank would do there. So,
You know, that seems to fit the future much more than, like, as I said, because brick and mortar just isn't quite the same thing. But I would rather that we not use the alley as an entrance. I think you need to have something maybe coming off of Central itself, because they drive into the parking lot now and then they can still go around and come out. I mean, this is the first time I saw anything like this, and I've always understood alleys shouldn't be for anything besides just an alley entrance.
well, we've got precedent right over here with the Taco Bell. Exactly. And they've got an alley entrance there. And it's right off the street. Whereas we're gonna have that alley entrance is back almost the length of the building, almost the length of our property from Central Valley Highway. So it isn't that they're gonna just come off and drop in there.
Mhm.
So, but that'll be up to you folks what you want to do there. So we can
Right.
change that around, I assume, if we had
Yeah.
to.
See if we can work with it.
Any other questions or comments?
No, I think it's a good project. I think bringing the opportunity to the city, you know, creating some jobs for some of our young people that are getting out of high school. I think having that is good. I think it would start giving it a different look for the downtown area. I did in the past, I did have concerns like when Starbucks was being built, where it's at 5 Points because of the outlets from the alley and into Lerdo Highway, but it didn't seem to be an issue. I think we did like a temporary type of study to see if there was anything going on. And then if needed, then they would be like, I think it was right turn only signs would be put in there or something like that to make sure that the traffic would flow accordingly through there. But I think it's a good project. Thank you.
Thank you.
Did I hear you say something?
Yeah, I was gonna say as well, the project itself is a very good project. Just the fact that it's a bank, it's Valley Strong. It's something very credible. It's not something off the wall. Now, if you would have brought in and out, that may be a challenge. But this is not in and out. This is a Valley Strong. It's a credit union. It's only open on during the 8 to 5 or 9 to 5. It's going to beautify that corner. As far as traffic, you ain't gonna have a lot of high traffic, just the way Mission Bank is. I think, you know, this whole project is gonna bring a lot of attention to our core city or downtown, which we've been always wanting to do. Could be the anchor to something else. I mean, we could stay here and, you know, and find something wrong with them, but then again, look at how long it took us to get a McDonald's. Look at how long it took us to get Rite Aid. You know, hope we don't do that again. So let's not just, you know, get tunnel vision. This is progress. I really believe this is progress, and this is time for change. Time to beautify downtown. That's all I have to say.
Very good. With that being said, council, no other questions or comments? Thank you again for your time, Dr. Hare.
Thank you, Mayor.
No other questions or comments in regards to this. I'm looking for a motion and a second for the zone change number 25-78 to introduce for first reading by title only, and we waive reading of ordinance number 767, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Shafter approving zone change number 2578 as depicted in Exhibit A. And a motion in a second, please.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Okay,
Could I ask a question? Could I ask a question?
Yes, ma'am, by all means.
Can I have a question?
Yeah, I have a motion, real quick, let me just say I have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Rivera and a second by Councilmember Alvarado. Before we proceed with roll call, your question, ma'am?
If we were to have an approval for a drive-through, can we specify what we want to see for the drive-through?
That is a great question, and I'm not sure that the answer would be yes, simply because this is for a zone change, not the actual construction project itself. However, staff can make note of it and take it into the design considerations during the conditional use permit process. But I don't know that that fits into the zone change ordinance language.
There would be a second bite of the apple during the conditional use permit where we can place specific conditions on this project. Now, that is done through the planning commission. You notice you never get to conditional use permits under your purview, the planning commission, but the planning commission works for you. So we could certainly bring forward your concerns or your thoughts to the planning commission as part of our staff report for their consideration when we're generating conditions of approval. So that is the mechanism. So again, there's two parts. We're figuring out whether you want the general plan amendment and zone change, or I'm sorry, rather just the zone change to change the base zone. And the base zone says for drive-throughs. Now just to be clear, if they didn't have a drive-through, a bank, a restaurant could go there right now by right. It's the fact that they want the drive-through is what's changing it. And so with that, with changing it from general commercial, or sorry, downtown commercial to general commercial, that allows the drive-through with a conditional use permit. So there's a second bite of this apple, a second approval process where they're going to bring us in a site plan where we then can review it and then condition it. And so we can reflect your ideas in those conditions of approval as well.
So you should still have the change before you consider the CUP.
Correct. Because right now the zone is general commercial, not allowed, explicitly not, drive-throughs explicitly not allowed, and that's not what they want. Sorry, downtown commercial, apologize.
Yeah.
So that is explicitly not allowed, but with general commercial, a drive-through is allowed with a conditional use permit.
Well, I think you understand what I'm trying to say because of the downtown. We don't have a plan and we don't know what's going to happen even at Rite Aid today. I mean, hopefully we'll have another drugstore or something that fills that need that we have there. And there's even rumblings about B of A shutting down. They're closing their places down in places. And I believe services are really important for this community. You know, it's not going to be clothing and it's not going to be some of the other businesses we have down there until we have a plan of what we're going to try to motivate people to come in and do.
Sure.
So I'm not opposed to a bank. I think it's good to have, and they seem to come with some good background. So, I mean, that's a good deal, but I'm concerned about the drive-through.
Understandable.
So do I vote no to say no to that, or how is there a guarantee that we're going to
You
have?
can vote no to voice your concern about adding a drive-through, which would change this from a downtown commercial to a general commercial. That would be where the vote no would lie on this one.
Well, and I know the planning commission had one no vote too, so.
Right. And so let's just say theoretically, you collectively voted no. It would remain downtown commercial. They could still put a bank or a restaurant there. That's allowed by right, permitted by right. It's just the drive-through would not be allowed.
And in this scenario, the drive-through is actually not based on your proposal, the drive-through is actually not off of Central Valley Highway. So theoretically, whether you add the drive or don't add the drive, the traffic count remains the same.
And the reality is that you can't have an egress off the Central Valley Highway because it doesn't meet the minimum standards to an intersection by the engineering design manual.
But they couldn't come back with a CUP and have that?
They couldn't meet the minimum distance standards, and we have Ravi Pudapetti, our city engineer here, if need be. But my understanding is that we don't have minimum distance. They couldn't have an egress, an in-out off of Central Valley Highway. You don't have enough distance between the two streets, the intersections, to be able to make that happen. Whereas they have the minimum to be able to have an ingress, egress off of Central and off of the alleyway.
Thank you.
So at this time, I do have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Olvera, second by Councilmember Alvarado, and requesting roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Alvarado,
Yes.
Prout,
No.
Olvera,
Yes.
Espinoza,
Yes.
and Given.
Yes. Thank you. Okay, moving on to our management report items. We have 5 items on the docket this evening for our management report. Item number 1 is the appropriations limit for fiscal year 2025-2026, consistent with Article, 13B of the California Constitution and selecting the annual adjustment factors. You know, it's been a minute since I've read Yeah, so I
Mhm.
put that B in there to throw me off guard. I apologize. Hello, sir. How you doing, Roger?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. My name is Roger Sanchez, your finance director. I'd like to give a brief introduction to Kyle Diddy, who has joined the finance department recently. He is, I believe, born and raised in Southern Oregon by the Medford area, and he has a bachelor's in economics and a master's in finance from University of Utah. So I'd like to introduce him to you. I don't know if you want to just say a couple words for that. And he's going to present the state appropriations limit.
Oh, he threw you right into this. Yeah, he did.
Yes, he did.
Trial by fire.
I'm excited to be here. Nice to see everyone. This is my second week, so yes, I've truly been thrown into it, but I'm excited to present the GAM limit. It's pretty exciting. So it is otherwise known as the state appropriations limit, SAL. And so the purpose is to control government spending by limiting the amount of tax revenues by state and local governments that they can spend each year. So basically, it's a calculation on the previous year's limit adjusted for changes in population and inflation. So the city of Shafter is well within that spending limit. So therefore, we recommend we adopt Resolution 3021.
All right, nice, short and simple. Everyone understand the GAN limit? I know we go through this each and every year. I know there was an adjustment that was made on the GAN limit, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
All right. Prior year appropriations limit was $458,550,000. I believe this year's limit is $511,118,000. Making sure everyone's aware of what that is. With that said, I'm going to look for a motion in a second in regards to item number 1.
Make the motion.
Second.
One jump at once. All right, I have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Olvera, second by Councilmember Alvarado. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Alvarado,
Yes.
Prout,
Yes.
Olvera.
Yes.
Espinoza,
Yes.
and Givens.
Yes. All right, thank you, sir. Item number 2 is the annual operating budget and capital improvement plan for fiscal year 2025-2026.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. I'd like to present a brief summary of the operating budget, proposed operating budget for next year. So this is a very short meeting. Council met in April 28th with a workshop, and we met for a few hours, and we provided details on the budget. So quick overview, the citywide operating expenses. This gives you multiple years operating expenditures for a proposed budget citywide of $48.8 million. This is excluding the sales tax agreements. However, you can see on the first section that is the labor cost. Then we have the operations, and after that, on the purple, we have the utilities. That includes the power and sewer, water, things like that, phone numbers, or excuse me, telecommunications. We also have the internal charges, and again, for a total of $48.8 million. This is a change year over year of our citywide authorized full-time positions for a total proposed of for the upcoming year of 143 full-time positions. You can see that's an increase of 7 full-time positions compared to the approved authorized budget on the current year. As you can see, there's on the building department, animal control, public works, finance. The transit is a conversion of 2 part-time into 2 full-time, and then 1 for HR. This is the summary for general fund operating revenues and expenditures. On the top section, we have a $37 million projected revenues, and then we have on the bottom of operating expenses of $34.6 million for an operating income of $2.7 million. This is good news where the operating revenues are able to cover the operating expenses. So for the upcoming year, there's highlighted there. Labor costs on the right side for general fund is $20.8 million, and then the rest of it. So like I said, the capital expenses previously authorized by council at $100,000, and then the CIP of 10.9. This is kind of unusual for the general fund. As you know, we have the police substation, the pool project, and also a community park. We also have a transfer of $350,000 from the general fund into the telecommunications, the fiber fund, to cover some much needed maintenance, repairs and maintenance. So therefore, we have a projected change of negative 8.6 million. So the general fund has sufficient reserves to cover that shortfall for the upcoming year. I also want to give you a quick overview of the quarterly sales tax. So, you know, what's going on. The latest one is Q1 of 2025. The blue section is Q1 for multiple years. Then the red one is Q2, and the green is Q3, and the purple is Q4. So this gives you at the top section the total revenue. For 2024, we had $11.6 million on sales taxes. Now, on the Q1 of 2025, we have a healthy $2.2 million. If you compare, it's slightly lower than the previous year, but it's still a healthy one. So we're on track for our sales taxes. With that, we recommend that the council adopt Resolution 3022, approving and adopting the annual operating budget and the CAP for the upcoming 25 and 26 fiscal year. With that, if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Okay, council, in regards to budgeting, any questions, comments, or concerns?
Yeah, you saw where the sales tax has gone down from even the previous year. So what happens if it goes down again?
So, you know, the previous projections for 2024, we had a very negative outlook initially. However, during the Christmas shopping, it was recovered, and you know, it's a big unknown if we have a decrease. However, even if we have a decrease, we still have sufficient monies to cover our operating expenses. The reason I say that is if you notice, the proposed revenues compared to the operating expenses, we have an operating income of $2.7 million, meaning that we can still have a shrinkage of sales taxes and still be able to cover our operating expenses. Not to mention that we've been increasing drastically on property taxes. Year over year, we have over 10% increase on property taxes. So this city continues to be fiscally conservative, and I think we're in good shape.
Thank you.
Questions? Any other questions?
Just we have one comment. Just for the 8.6 million or 8,650,000, the projected changes, the community park, the police substation, and there was a third one, right? The third item or the aquatic center.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
And it's just a one-time expenditure that we have to do for that, right?
Well, we do have the one-time capital expenses for the building on the pool, for the building on the police. Now, we do have grants that cover most of the capital expenses from the California Clean, I believe it's called. So we have those grants available. But because we had a shortfall, the general fund needs to make up for that, and that's what that is for the most part. Now, we do expect to have operating expenses to increase in the upcoming years to operate the pool. That we have to put more electricity, more chemicals, and also potentially we need to outsource the programs as well. So we do expect those increases in the future for operations. But as far as the capital, this is a one-time.
Thank you, Roger.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, hearing none, seeing none, I'm looking for a motion and a second to approve the annual operating budget. Very good job, sir.
I move approve.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Okay, I have a motion by Councilmember Proud, a second by Mayor Pro Tem Olvera. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Alvarado,
Yes.
Prout,
Yes.
Olvera,
Yes.
Espinoza,
Yeah.
and Gibbons.
Yes, thank you very much. Item number 3 is the North Shafter Community Park Project for the contract award. Hello, Mr. Gonzalez, how you doing?
I'm doing well. Honorable Mayor, members of the Shafter City Council. We have here to talk about the North Shafter Community Park. On the screen, you'll see a site plan that reflects the latest as-bid plans for the park. The city received $3.8 million in a grant to develop this park. The park includes things like a splash pad, playground, picnic areas, basketball court, spray park, parking. And then in addition to that, the council requested that we add a pickleball court. So we went ahead and did that. We proceeded with bidding. We bid it with the base bid being phase one and then an add alternate item for phase two. Phase one included all of the items that we were committed to as a part of the grant. The pickleball court was not included. So you'll see basically the north half of the park was phase two, and all of that was an additive alternate so that the council could make a decision on whether or not you wanted to proceed with that portion of the park. We went through the bidding process and we opened bids on May 16th. We received 4 bids. The lowest bid was submitted by Derek D. Enterprise Incorporated. Their bid was $4,596,070.75. You'll notice there is an ad alternate price as well in the staff report. We'll touch on that a little bit later. Theirs is pretty high, and we'll touch on why that is. But our obligation actually is to award based on the base bid and not factor in the ad alternate items to determine lowest responsible bidder. So Derek D. Enterprises was the lowest responsible bidder. They haven't worked with us before, but they do have multiple projects ongoing, as well as they recently completed an 8-acre park in Dinuba. So very familiar with the type of work. We did have one bid protest that was submitted by Superior Construction. They had a couple of different items in that bid protest. 2 of them were related to subcontractor listing. Staff reviewed it and found that there was no issues with the subcontractors they listed. The items that the bid protest highlighted didn't need to be listed or could be covered by the general contractor under their own forces. The other item was that one of their electrical line items for site lighting was significantly lower than other ones, than other contractors that bid. However, variance in bid prices like that doesn't deem a bid non-responsive, and the contractor's still responsible to cover all the items, and, how they distribute some of those costs varies from bidder to bidder. So ultimately, we reviewed the bid protest and found it to be without merit. So the recommendation tonight would be to award the base bid and then all of the additive alternate items except one line item M3 in the additive alternates. It appears that they have a typo in their line item. For Bark there, they put $70 a square foot, which resulted in a $900,000 cost for Bark. They have a similar line item in the base bid for 75 cents a square foot, which would have brought that down to like between 9 and 10,000. So it seems that there is an issue there. We will, if awarded, we would work with the awarded contractor to negotiate that item and come up, with a reasonable price, and then potentially issue a change order for that item. However, that item is an ad alternate, so it has no base, bearing on the lowest responsible bidder. So removing that item, the total for the additive alternate is $787,100.27. If you add that to their base bid, that would be a total award of $5,383,171.02. Staff is recommending a total project budget for construction of $5.8 million to cover the construction contract and allow for contingencies and support costs to go along. The project currently has a budget of $5,903,234 in the CIP. We already have spent about $340,000 of that on design and pre-bid activities, so it leaves a budget of approximately $5,564,000. And so to cover that, a budget amendment of $300,000 from the general fund would be needed. As far as timelines for the project does have a 300 calendar day duration on it. So allowing some time, to get the contract going and everything like that. It puts us roughly completing in May, June of 2026. So summer of 2026, assuming there's no delays or anything that come up during construction. It is going through the winter months, so there is potential for that, but the goal would be to complete it well within that timeline. So with that, the recommendation for tonight would be to accept the 4 bids received, overrule the bid protest that was submitted, authorize a budget amendment of $300,000 to the project, and authorize the Public Works Director to issue a notice of award and notice to proceed to Derek D. Enterprise in an amount up to 5.8 million to include the base bid and all additive alternate items excluding bid line item M3. And with that, I would be happy to take any questions that you might have.
Council, questions, comments, concerns?
Are all of the bidders from Bakersfield?
No, I don't believe so. We've worked with 3 of them.
The SW?
SW, yeah. Derek D. Enterprise, I'm not sure where they're.
I don't know where they're.
I'm not sure where actually the low bidder's address is from, but the other 3 we've worked with before.
So Derek's the one you,
That one's the one I don't know what their address is from, where they're at. I don't think they're from Bakersfield. I could be wrong about that.
Quick Google, sorry, Alex, show
Go
the
for it.
Bakersfield, for Derek D Enterprises,
Yeah.
but that's just a quick.
Okay.
Google, So.
Yeah.
it is Bakersfield?
Yeah, so
Per Google, Google's never wrong.
sometimes they have different addresses
They
depending
move.
on where their PO boxes are
Yeah.
located and things, so.
Okay. I just wondered.
Any other questions, comments? Hearing none.
The 300,000 that you're asking out of the general budget, that doesn't have any, is that before or after Roger's request for the money that he requested out of the general fund?
So the numbers reference were the numbers for the budget that was just adopted, so it would be on top of what was just there. So it's
Okay,
our first budget amendment.
okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
technically, yeah. Any other questions, comments? All right, hearing none, seeing none, I'm gonna move for a motion in a second on this item, please.
I make the motion.
I'll second it.
Okay, I have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Olvera, second by Councilmember Espinoza. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Alvarado,
Yes.
Prout,
Yes.
Olvera,
Yes.
Espinoza,
Yeah.
and Givens.
Yes, very good to see this project moving, I must say. All right, item number 4, direction to staff regarding council approval of special events requiring road closures. Hello, Mr. Franz.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and members of the Shafter City Council. I'm David Franz, Community Services Director. Tonight, I am requesting your direction on special events that close a public street but are expected to draw fewer than 300 attendees. So on January 21st, 2025, at your regular council meeting, you adopted ordinance number 762, which raised the threshold of of number of people at an event at any given time that required that special event permit to come to you for approval from 50 to 300. That allowed events that don't significantly impact public use of infrastructure or city operations to be approved quickly. So for example, a quinceañera or a birthday party in the park wouldn't require getting on the city council agenda and getting your approval. So 300 is the threshold that requires a permit to come to council, though staff can send permits to council for other reasons. Historically, for example, any event encroaching on the public right of way, my understanding is that any event like that would come to council for approval, regardless of the size. However, given that the size threshold was so low, there were very few events that didn't come to you that would have required closure of the public right of way. So with the threshold of 300, however, there are quite a few events, block parties, grand openings, these kinds of things that might fit into a space where they're interested in closing the road, but it doesn't meet the 300 person threshold that would require it to come to you. So this wasn't something that was discussed around the adoption of ordinance 762, but road closures clearly do impact public use of infrastructure, public access to the streets and city operations. And since staff do not have clear rules to apply about when closures are justified, one possibility would be for council to simply affirm the historic practice of bringing road closure events to you for approval. Another alternative would be for council to set rules that staff could apply for when road closures would be appropriate and when they wouldn't. And with that, I'm available for any questions. Council, question? Was eating a mint. I didn't want to crunch too loud. Council, questions, comments, or concerns? Otherwise, this is an item for direction, so we are looking for some type of conversation to take place on this one.
I don't mind the fact that, just the fact that a road being closed brought before council. Even if it's 50, like if I wanted to close Mantle Street, the piece in front of my house just for my birthday, you know, for 50 people, maybe that should come to council.
For the baby shower.
That's right.
I don't disagree with you. I think it's a wise move to have that come forward. Okay, so I think we have direction. Thank you. Do you need formal thumbs up here, or tell us what you want, sir?
It seems like there's consensus from council, so staff will incorporate this in our assessment going forward on these. If there is a road closure, we'll bring it to you guys for approval.
Okay. That's good. Thank you. We don't need to add that to this whole. I'm not trying to get more bureaucratic. I just want to make sure.
Rather than adjust ordinances and everything else, we'll treat it as an internal staff practice, and that'll be the rule going forward.
Very good. Thumbs up. Item number 5, the last item for the manager reports, Beach Avenue construction at planned Santa Fe roundabout status and direction. And this one will be fun, guys, sir. Mr. James, good seeing you up here.
Good to see you. Honorable Mayor, members of the Shafter City Council, Michael James, Director of Public Works. I'm going to be presenting this item, but the Deputy Director Gonzalez and City Engineer Pudapetti are with me to participate in the Q&A, which will undoubtedly follow this presentation. Several years ago, Caltrans and the city initiated plans to replace the all-way stop intersection at Highway 43 and Santa Fe Way with a roundabout. The intent of the roundabout would be to reduce congestion and improve safety. The partnership formed consisted of the city being responsible for the pre-construction work, valued at approximately $3 million. You basically have $1.5 million for the design and $1.5 million for the right-of-way acquisition. Now, regarding the design, it's important to point out that Caltrans is still performing the design. It's just that the city is responsible for funding their design work. Fortunately, we have most of that design work covered with a federal grant. So through the partnership, Caltrans is responsible for constructing the roundabout, valued at approximately $8 to $10 million. Their staff, Caltrans staff, has made our staff aware that construction funding will expire if certain areas of the pre-construction work are not finalized or approved this year. Now, as far as the right-of-way is concerned, we're in good shape. We're on pace to have the council authorize the full right-of-way acquisition by the end of the summer. As far as the design goes, one of the outstanding items is to have the California Public Utilities Commission address the future of the Beach Avenue connection. So changes to any at-grade rail crossings are under the purview of the CPUC. And you make specific requests for changes through the request for authority to alter highway rail crossing form. Now, Caltrans, as the lead designer, prepared this form and with the stated intent to close Beach Avenue. And they asked the Public Works Director, me, to sign off on the form before it was submitted to the CPUC. What's in your agenda packet is the form I was referring to, but it's not the version of the form that Caltrans initially prepared. It was with my proposed modifications, just FYI. So since 2020, Caltrans has based their design on their recommendation that the Beach Avenue connection be terminated. At that time, Caltrans reported to city staff that even if we call it the five-legged intersection because it includes Beach Avenue, even if that was approved by the CPUC, the roundabout with beach traffic could have to be signalized, adding approximately $1 million to the construction cost because we would have to stop opposing traffic to accommodate beach going across the railroad tracks, which would make the roundabout a lot less effective. So during the same year, 2020, the city council that was in place at the time voted to accept the outcome of the beach closure, but that acceptance was primarily based on a previous plan for high-speed rail, the high-speed rail's grade separation project to require the closure of beach anyway to allow the tracks to be raised, to raise the BNSF track as well as the future high-speed rail track over crossings to the north, such as Laredo Highway and Tulare Avenue. In 2018, before Caltrans made its design recommendation, there was a settlement agreement reached with the High Speed Rail Authority that secured $5 million to invest in mitigation projects to offset the loss of the Beach Avenue connections. And those mitigation projects include street improvements to Golds Avenue, including a signal at Laredo Highway, street improvements at Cherry Avenue, which includes another signal at Laredo Highway, as well as street improvements on East Los Angeles Avenue. Through 2024, it appeared that the grade separation was on the fast track to being completed. It was federally funded with a federal grant. It was in design. Right-of-way was being pursued. So it was in a position to be constructed before the roundabout, or at least started before the roundabout. On top of that, high-speed rail officials were even having discussions with staff and the council about the prospects of keeping the Beach Avenue connection through the grade separation project. Unfortunately, a federal funding freeze has put the project, the grade separation project, in question and even in doubt. So more recently, high-speed rail officials have let our staff know that their current focus is on addressing project consolidations and cost savings in other parts of the state. So basically, Shafter is not on high-speed rail's radar right now. So it's obvious now, at least to public works staff, that the roundabout will be the first project built, or the first project that starts, meaning that a closure of Beach Avenue would be preemptive to the grade separation project and not during the grade separation project. So staff has heard from council members that have expressed a strong desire to keep the Beach Avenue connection open. So the objective of this agenda item is to have the council revisit and discuss its position on the Beach Avenue connection and provide direction to staff after having staff share considerations, realities, and consequences of taking certain positions. And through this presentation, and I think this was included in your agenda packet, we've prepared 3 possible options. Not every conceivable option, but 3 options that I think could at least start a discussion. Starting with option 1, which is proceeding with the design that Caltrans currently has put before us. We call it the 4-legged intersection and minus the Beach Avenue connection. Now we're referring to this as a temporary closure so we can kind of keep the door open for a possible reconnection of Beach Avenue with the grade separation project or another intersection improvement. So that's really important, especially if we're submitting something to the CPUC. We're going to brand this as a temporary closure. So moving forward with the design as is, that Caltrans currently has before us, it preserves project timelines and construction funding eligibility. We can proceed with the right-of-way that's already being negotiated. We can finalize the design, and we can request to the CPUC that the beach access remain open until the roundabout construction actually starts, which we realistically have a couple of years before that happens. And CPUC staff, to their credit, has seemed willing to accommodate that request. Now, so those, and then another advantage or pro to the 4-legged roundabout. I don't know if we've talked about this. I don't know if this has a laser on it, but you may not have heard. But without having to accommodate Beach Avenue, northbound Santa Fe Way will have a bypass lane, which will will relieve traffic congestion even further. And again, with the temporary closure, you can leave the door open for a future connection at a later date. The cons, the disadvantage of a beach closure, besides the actual closure, is that restoring Beach Avenue is not a guarantee, especially if high-speed rail doesn't do the grade separation project. It's not even a guarantee if they do a grade separation project, because as some of you know, they're only willing to talk about it. They're not really willing to make commitments to revisiting Beach at this time. And of course, with Beach being closed, we're redirecting traffic impacts to other nearby rail crossings, notably Laredo Highway and Cherry Avenue. And there's potential complications with the high-speed rail settlement proceeds if we do a preemptive closure. Specifically, would high-speed rail recognize a preemptive closure as grounds to commit the settlement proceeds now that there's no longer a closure to mitigate, a rail crossing closure to mitigate? So those are the basic pros and cons. Are there any questions or thoughts before I move on to the next option?
My thoughts are that high-speed rail will be delayed and they're gonna have different people there.
That's another challenge. And they have a new CEO and,
And they change often.
correct, correct.
And the costs will go up.
That's it. Okay. Moving on to option two. This, which basically consists of asking Caltrans and the CPUC to reconsider the Beach Avenue connection. In theory, it'll buy us some time. It'll preserve the Beach Avenue connection connectivity, at least in the short term. But again, if high-speed rail finds a funding source and they want to reactivate the project, then we're under an obligation for the settlement agreement to close it anyway. And this may, of course, because there's an actual crossing to close, this may strengthen the city's positions regarding the high-speed rail settlement proceeds. And per Caltrans, the right-of-way that we're pursuing for the roundabout project won't be affected by the status of beach. So we could still proceed with the right-of-way acquisition and pursue the beach and maintain the beach connection. The disadvantages to option two, and there's just some significant risks that come with it. Undoubtedly, Caltrans and CPUC will want to perform additional analysis and just to determine whether or not a signal or some other kind of accommodations for beach need to be made, which will take time and will delay an already delayed project. And these delays could lead to a loss of construction funding. And even if there's funding and Caltrans and CPUC endorsement of the Beach Avenue connection, by accommodating Beach Avenue, you're going to have the benefits of the roundabout are going to be significantly reduced because you're slowing down traffic and even stopping traffic to accommodate Beach Avenue. Any questions about that?
The crossing right there, going across the tracks to Beach Avenue, is that gonna be an underpass, an overpass?
It's going to be at grade. It's going to be at grade, just like it is now.
Okay.
Assuming high-speed rail doesn't happen. The third and final option is just the status quo. Not proceeding with any project, just to, retain full roadway connectivity, but also retain flexibility for future intersection design or alternative proposals that we can consider. The obvious disadvantages are that, the city's already invested some amount of funding to this point that could get wasted on design and right-of-way acquisition. And even though we haven't spent a lot of money on right-of-way at this point, like we could be doing later on this summer, pulling back on the right-of-way acquisition could create some confusion and frustration with the affected property owners that we've already been in touch with. And it may result in the cost of right-of-way being significantly more if we decide to revisit right-of-way acquisition later. So in addition to the loss of Caltrans construction funding, state funding, it's important to point out that the city, or going back to the federal funding that I mentioned that was helping us offset the cost of Caltrans' design, by taking that money and using that money for a design and not following through with an actual roundabout, the city could be on the hook to have to reimburse that money, which it could be valued at up to 1.3 million. So, not a lot of great options. But given the options that are before you today, staff recommends proceeding with option one, with the closure of Beach Avenue. It maintains the project timeline and funding eligibility. It ensures that the past and obligated funding gets put to good use, and the closure won't be immediate. We'll have a couple of years to work on mitigation projects at other intersections. And again, the closure could be temporary. If the grade separation project is able to accommodate Beach Avenue, then we can pursue that through the CPUC. And of course, we will advocate for the High-Speed Rail Authority to advance settlement proceeds so we can get a jump start on the mitigation projects that have already been approved. The loss of beach would lead to short and long-term challenges, but a four-legged roundabout would address the immediate and most pressing challenges at that intersection, which are traffic congestion, and particularly at Santa Fe Way and Highway 43, which accounts for 90% of the traffic at that intersection. And then we would also eliminate an at-grade rail crossing that has a pretty serious history of accidents. And with that, I'd be happy to respond to questions or concerns.
The first question I have is, we stay with option one, then there's still a lane that is on the side for beach to keep moving. How does,
Moving east along East Los Angeles, you mean?
no, we go along the railroad track. Didn't you say one of the options had that? Where you would have it open and you'd still have the roundabout that could be set up over here for the other four, and then beach would still
Oh,
run along.
I think I know what you're talking about, Ms. Prout.
Uh-huh.
Go back to option one. I think you're talking about the flow from Santa Fe. So instead of taking the roundabout to get
Yes.
on the other side, they would have its own individual flow just to
Mhm.
maintain Santa Fe
Yeah.
through. That it wasn't to maintain the beach, it was just to maintain Santa Fe through.
So the Beach Avenue with option, the Beach Avenue connection with option one would be terminated. And
In-
because of that, Santa Fe has the ability, northbound Santa Fe has the ability to almost bypass the
Okay,
roundabout.
so that's the only parts, beach can't fit into it, huh?
Not with option one,
Okay.
but it will be
I guess
directed.
what the part that bothers me the most is that we've known about this now since 1920 or 2020 rather. And we haven't really planned for the other intersections. And we knew that the day was going to come. And we just haven't. And can we do it in 2 years?
Well, it would be more challenging without the high-speed rail settlement proceeds, but
Yeah.
but it would almost be an advantage to proceed with the design and planning of some of these projects now rather than wait for high-speed rail to design them. And we could readily commit traffic impact fee proceeds to initiate the design, to get that started at least. And could certainly have a design within a year or two. With the construction, that would probably extend past 2 years, but I've talked about this with Public Works staff, and we were trying to figure out like the best way to navigate if option one is ultimately awarded. And I think shortly after we concede beach, we would be wanting to focus on Laredo Cherry, Laredo Golds, and then we even have a consulting engineer looking at Cherry Santa Fe right now to come up with some remedies.
Okay. Yeah, we have to have something.
You and I have talked about this, so personally, I don't want to see beach closed. I think we're going to really hurt Laredo in the long scheme of things. I think it just doesn't make a lot of sense to see that closed. I see where you're going with option one. I understand the reason why you're going that route. And I don't mind having a temporary on beach. However, unless we have something else already started, I'm not comfortable with any of them. I do believe beach needs to stay open, but if it can't be, and we've talked about it, I understand the reasons why with this situation. If Cherry is going to be that item that's going to help mitigate that traffic flow that is going northbound, but on the east side of the tracks, I would rather see us get started on that now and have something in hand now before we sit here and say, let's go ahead and start the temporary closure on beach. It's a situation where when you start the temporary closure on beach, I do feel like we are going to shut all the other doors or options that we potentially could have, whether it's a change of leadership in the HSR or even with Caltrans. I don't want to shut that door unless we know that we have something else already open.
Yeah, and I wouldn't really want to hold out hope that the settlement proceeds are going to come anytime soon.
Right.
And Director Gonzalez made a good point. By forfeiting the roundabout, you're losing out on $10 million. And whereas the mitigation funds are $5 million. So I think that by the monetary amount, the roundabout has greater value than holding out hope for the high-speed rail proceeds to mitigate. I would almost like I mentioned earlier, I would probably prefer to come back to you if option one is ultimately accepted, just initiate the mitigation, the design of the mitigation projects right away and not, and
Well, I think that's the problem, right? 10 is greater than 5. I don't disagree with that comment. But frankly, right now, it's 0. HSR is not even having the conversation with us. And let's just be honest, I don't see HSR surviving over the course of the next 3 months. I don't. And so knowing that's the case, 10 is going to be greater than 0 every time, right? Okay, fair enough, but that also means that we've shut every door now to having beach opened up by walking down this road and saying, you know, let's talk about a temporary closure on beach for now. I think we need to at least get the ball rolling in another area. If it's Cherry, great. If it's not, and it's this option 2 5-legged thing happening or some type of morph of said option, it has to be something more. I just don't feel comfortable starting this process without having something else open on the other side.
the challenge is that, accommodating that might result in the loss of the construction funding for the roundabout.
Yeah, we don't want that.
I understand that. I do understand that, but you could be talking about a lot of losses in this. It's just, it's a really difficult one to process. I just don't feel like we've focused here. Let's say the roundabout's done. What happens to Lerdo? What's the mitigation for Lerdo? Because now everybody who's going on the east side is now going to use Lerdo. So how are we going to mitigate that traffic? Right? It's got a lane that will allow, let's say, 3 cars at max to be able to move and get ready for the rail. We know HSR won't be coming in, so it's still going to be an ag grade crossing. So how are we going to mitigate, instead of 3 cars, now there's 30 cars that are lined up on a 2-lane or 4-lane, but that section going northbound is 2-lane. How are we going to mitigate that? We haven't talked about the mitigation there, nor have we talked about the mitigation that's coming west on Lerdo that is now needing to go south on Santa Fe, right? There's a lot there that I hear you losing the 10 million on the roundabout. Even if you said, hey, we spent $1 million in right away acquisition, I get even if it was just that. There's a lot to be said there, but there's still an issue of not having that easterly access.
Yeah, and unfortunately, the federal funding freeze just kind of threw us for a loop because that was going to trigger the mitigation projects, and it was gonna and we didn't have to worry so much about beach because we just kind of grew to accept that beach was going to get closed, or we were holding out hope that the conversations with High Speed Rail would lead to them reconsidering that. But if nothing else, they would have initiated the traffic mitigation projects. And now it's just radar silent across the board.
So I have a question. Did we pull traffic counts for like beach between Lerdo and Los Angeles, and then Los Angeles and Cherry going towards Santa Fe over the crossing? Do we have the
Well,
numbers?
the beach activity at the roundabout, at the intersection is about 9%, 4,000 cars a day. And there's about out of 45,000 cars that travel through that intersection, according to that Urban SDK product that we just purchased.
But wouldn't it be fair to say that,
I thought it was.
Yeah, I don't. So
wouldn't it be fair to say that you can't really go by today's, you gotta look at our future that's gonna have such an increase? I mean, it's increased even up to today, it's gonna get even more so. So you can't really go by that number.
the other question that I have is, if I understand that the agreements have been made and that type of thing, and I was completely against trying to close beach down because I think it's going to significantly impact, traffic flow. But to put a roundabout and then put a signal, I think that defeats the purpose of what we're trying to accomplish. I mean, I drive and I see the line from Los Angeles on Santa Fe clear almost sometimes to Ash, or I think it's East Ash. And, it's flowing very slowly, right? And it's the same direction the other way on Santa Fe towards 7 Standard. But I think we need to figure out how can we come up with a good solution for this. I know that beach was closed temporarily for some construction in the past. What if do we have anything that shows how that impacted Lerdo and 43 when it was diverted?
Horribly.
Nothing scientific. I mean, it was just the old
Scientific
eyeball
type
test. That,
horrible.
So I can tell you that we received no complaints. From driving it every day, I can tell you the traffic flowed quite a bit better than it does right now. There was also, right now, this intersection has a huge issue, especially with semis pulling doubles of them either stopping on the tracks or when they cross over to go onto Los Angeles on the other side, they actually block the intersection. So the way it is actually, perform now, when the temporary closure went through, the intersection actually worked better. So, and I know 4,000 cars sounds like a lot, but realistically, with 90% of the traffic on Santa Fe, that really has to be the focus to keep the flow of traffic going forward.
And even with the roundabout shifting the intersection further west, having that beach connection still means that beach is gonna really have to wait for the predominant flow of traffic Santa Fe Way to flush out of the roundabout before it could safely enter. So you're still gonna have trailers kind of extending onto the railroad tracks. And as long as you have an at-grade rail crossing, you've got some safety challenges.
Well, by moving it down to Cherry or even Riverside or even Gold, you're still gonna have the track.
But we have one less though.
Yeah, well, it wouldn't have as much that forward, yes.
Correct.
What would be the result? You shut down Beach. What would Beach and Los Angeles become? Is that gonna be like a dead end where vehicles have to make a U-turn and go
No,
back the
it
other way?
would
How-
just,
how
it would just be like you can do now, just minus the railroad crossing. You could just like have a left turn, beach southbound on the left turn onto eastbound East Los Angeles.
Just go around the circle.
Don't I-
From Los Angeles, don't make a left. From Beach, don't make a right.
Don't make a right.
Yeah.
I guess it'd be like a street knuckle, you know?
Yeah, just-
Yeah.
Regular curve.
To your point about it only being 4,000, I understand that. But to Ms. Prout's point, that's today.
Yeah.
And so still, even in this conversation, no one has alluded to what happens on Lerdo. Lerdo, the amount of traffic is not stopping. And it's not going to stop. It's only going to increase. So then whether it's adding 4,000 cars a day, gentlemen, we still got to figure out how in the world we're going to do that because today's 4,000, tomorrow's 8,000. What does that look like? We haven't talked about that aspect of it. And that's what concerns me. If there's a legitimate plan that says we know how to get traffic to flow from point A to point B, and it's going to work better for everybody in the long scheme of things, great. How many people are on the east side who use Los Angeles to actually get to the back side, which would be the west side of Shafter? I assume there's a handful of people who do that as well. So there's a lot of questions I think need to be addressed because if that's not going to be available, then you're going to end up people using Lerdo more significantly, which then is going to turn into Shafter Avenue. And I believe last week, Councilmember Alvarado made the point about the pothole, the infamous pothole that somehow can never get fixed. And I'm not trying to be rude about it, but on
5 points.
5 points. I know that thing's a nightmare every single time. It's just going to get worse again, right? So I'm just trying to, all I'm asking for is before we have that conversation on, hey, give us a thumbs up on, closing this or moving this. There should be some type of other conversation saying we've already started this process, and I'm not seeing that.
So, and I think that's where Mike really, or Director James really kind of highlighted option one as being the primary because it allows us to concurrently plan for this mitigation while traffic counts remain relatively slow. The problem is going to be, and credit to Public Works for kind of negotiating this very convoluted situation. The reality of the situation currently is council's already obligated the city to close Beach pursuant to the 2018 high-speed rail settlement. So as of now, that is closed. There is no indication from high-speed rail whatsoever, and we've been in multiple conversations with Garth, that there is any seriousness whatsoever that they will remove that portion or modify it with any additional consideration from the city. So unfortunately, and I hear you, there would be, the ideal thing would be not to have a temporary closure, allow us to plan out all mitigation and implement prior to it going forward. We don't have that situation here. Unfortunately, we're in the situation where we have to walk the line with the least harm to the city with the best preservation of funding, and which in this case would be option one. And that does allow for mitigation to be planned concurrently and for options to be brought as well.
I'm going to ask a really silly question, but have we ever said or heard that why not close Los Angeles? And could you still then work the roundabout with Beach? And that would get you over the track and then you'd be around?
We haven't had that discussion. I think Los Angeles traffic is, by volume, is not much more than the Beach East Los Angeles leg. But it's just that it just seems to be a very popular bypass for Lerdo Highway, and people I think
Yeah,
are,
I've always heard that too. That goes
and I
way
think that's
back.
going to get increasingly worse with development on the south side.
So we really don't want to.
So we were kind of zeroed in on like the most critical routes and
May I ask of you, you seem to have some good numbers there. Can you give us numbers based on your data on the northbound flow of Santa Fe, the southbound flow of Santa Fe, the westbound flow of Los Angeles, the southbound flow of 43, and then the beach flow. Do you have each of those numbers?
I'm gonna refer to this as kind of like the legs, like there's 5 legs to the intersection.
Yes, sir.
So Highway 43 north, when Santa Fe and Highway 43 merge, going into the core area, 16,000 cars. Santa Fe Way northbound, leading up to the intersection, 13,000. West Los Angeles, 5,000. 43 south, 7,000. And then the beach, East Los Angeles is technically one leg on the east side of the railroad tracks. That's 4,000.
So the,
Thank you.
excuse me, Mike, the biggest flows is Santa Fe, north to south? Is that where the
One
most?
Santa Fe, yes, on either side, basically, on either north or southbound of the intersection, whether it's Highway 43, Santa Fe, it's virtually the same approaching the intersection,
Okay, so running along the railroad tracks.
parallel to the railroad tracks.
Yeah,
correct?
so it's basically the traffic that we're getting that's going to the prison, that's just going straight through, that's causing our major part of the backups, right?
No.
During rush hour, yeah, you mean, that would probably be where you're,
And
commuter
that's
traffic is
that's
probably
the
causing-
3, 4, 5 o'clock traffic where everything's all backed up through there and everything. The traffic going basically across Beach and Los Angeles, or Beach and 43, that's not, those 3 don't add up to the traffic along the railroad tracks, right?
Well, it's hard to say because I don't have that, like where what their destinations are but it's hard for me to kind of
Yeah.
pinpoint it like
Well,
that.
I mean, that's the way I go into town. I take Central Valley.
Yeah.
And so when I'm coming out, when I'm heading south, it's backed up all the way, coming into town, halfway to the light on Laredo. And when you're the other way, sometimes you're almost backed up all the way out there to, what is that, Riverside or whatever,
Right,
this and that. And that to me is because when I was working on the north side of town, I could see the increases of the traffic level during the cutoff times, the shifts, breaks,
Mhm.
and all that. And that coincides with the problem that we have right there at the roundabout site.
Yeah, the big problem is just having an always stop. Yeah, and then what makes things even worse is the railroad crossing. And that makes it even worse. So
Yeah.
the roundabout minus the beach connection is really viewed as the best short-term solution to mitigate that congestion.
So I have another question. With option 1, it says proceed with temporary closure of Beach Avenue. Say the high-speed rail doesn't come through. Is there an option to reopen it at a future date once that roundabout is there, or is that it's off the table now because we would have to have that signaled access constructed? Or
If the high-speed rail funding doesn't come through, then the prospects to get the Beach Avenue connection approved, reconnection approved is pretty minimal.
Okay.
But we would purposely submit something to the CPUC that wouldn't limit us to the high-speed rail grade separation project. We would just allow for intersection improvements to be determined at a later date.
thank you.
See, I think that's my concern of it all is, and I understand option 1, but my concern continues to go back to you've now put it out there, and it's like toothpaste out of a tube, right? You can't get it in once you've said it. And so that's my concern. I agree with you. I don't want to lose the funding on it. I get it. But the flip side of this is I just don't see where we've started even having the conversation about mitigation in another area. And I do wish we would have started that conversation a couple years ago when we knew that HSR money was available to us then. I never thought about golds. That's interesting to see that actually touches, and that could be an option, but again, I don't know what HSR would do in that area. Regardless, I would like to see something at least started or, giving us another option that says, you know, if we do this, we think these options are going to work and here's what that would look like, at least preliminary. But that's what I think I'm struggling with the most is I don't see anything preliminary. I just see close this and then we'll talk about that. That's where I'm struggling.
Is there a timeline?
For the roundabout?
Well, for us to do this now.
Well, Caltrans is really anxious to get all of the paperwork, the design work in a position where it's accepted, approved before the end of this year. And otherwise, they feel like there's a clock on that construction funding that's going to expire. And they haven't given us, to my knowledge, they haven't given us a precise deadline, but there's a sense of urgency with this particular form with the CPUC because I would imagine the CPUC takes some time to review and get back to you and ask questions and make stipulations and things like that. So it's just time is of the essence is what we're hearing from Caltrans. But we didn't really want to we wanted to have this discussion before we even entertain filling out that form and submitting anything to the CPUC. But we don't really have a firm time frame, but it's our understanding that they want to be in a position to break ground next year. But keep in mind, part of breaking ground is utility relocations, and which could take up quite a bit of time, and it'll technically be construction, but that wouldn't warrant a closure of beach. So that's what makes me think that the actual closure of beach is probably at least 2 years away, and giving us time and hopefully with your authorization funding to kind of proceed with some of these projects ahead of the high-speed rail settlement funds if those ever come to fruition.
How long would it take to get some type of preliminary drawing and thought pattern around Golds in Santa Fe or Cherry in Santa Fe? What would it take to get to that?
Well, per the settlement agreement, the improvement plans for Golds and Cherry and Laredo are pretty well defined in the settlement agreement. So we could graphically depict that for you. But those are the mitigation, and we also have widening East Los Angeles Avenue to a certain extent. That were the previous city engineer came up with a pretty detailed cost estimate that led to that $5 million number, and so we could summarize that for you and kind of give you a sense of what the extent of those improvements are on a map or something like that.
I would just feel more comfortable having this conversation with something in hand to talk about where we could be headed to.
Do you have enough for us to consider number one and just answer some of our questions and see if maybe we can still have?
We could certainly bring this back to you with that additional information in hand. If I understand you correctly, we're just kind of looking for maybe a better understanding what the mitigation projects are and how soon they can be started.
Yes.
That might help us.
Perhaps we could just revisit this at the next available meeting and then continue this item. Okay.
Yeah, please.
Have manual and.
The plan with number one option, and then the one where it shows the option with the beach crossing. That doesn't change the configuration of this. Look, here it does it. It's just kind of like it expands what it would look like. Yeah.
The footprint of the roundabout itself doesn't really change much at all with the beach connection. With or without the beach connection.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so it doesn't change, but the difference is the traffic crossing the railroad tracks. That's the problem, right?
That's the main problem. That's the main challenge.
And then for me, just visioning everything, right there, if the high-speed rail comes through and everything and all that, that's all gonna be ground level. It's not gonna be lifted or raised or anything like that.
No, the reason why we have a settlement agreement is the high-speed rail, and we need to point out too that it's not just high-speed rail.
Right.
The problem, high-speed rail's problem is that the grant they got has their name on it, and so they're subject to more scrutiny. But the main benefit of that project would be it's elevating the BNSF track as well. The problem with Beach Avenue is that transition from at grade to raise is mid-transition at Beach, so Beach gets cut off, which led to the settlement agreement, which led to Caltrans saying basically, it's going to close anyway. Plus, even if it wasn't closed, we're gonna probably have to put a signal in there and like, again, like as you pointed out, Councilmember Olvera, what's the point of having a roundabout if there's a signal?
Yeah.
But to answer your question, the master plan for the high-speed rail project along this corridor is for it to be raised with the BNSF track, side by side. And then you eliminate additional at-grade crossings by having the existing roadways go underneath the track at Lerdo, Tulare, places like that.
So, I mean, for us to be able to keep this, they would need to start.
They would need to,
elevating
they would
it
need to start
further
that
back.
transition closer to Riverside, which may not even be possible because they've got a set agenda for Riverside as well, which is gonna be Riverside's gonna go over the railroad tracks. The BNSF tracks. See, this is what makes it really confusing because high-speed rail swoops in and runs parallel with the BN at Beach.
Right.
But as far as this corridor, like Beach all the way north of the core area, I mean, the plan is to raise it.
Be raised up above. So everything else, all the way past Shafter Avenue is gonna go underneath it.
I mean, a perfect scenario that I could foresee is that they get the funding to do the grade separation project, but they can't build the rest of the high-speed rail project. So you have the win-win where you raise the freight train and you don't have it to share it with high-speed rail.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Probably unlikely, Council.
So I just gotta make
No
one,
pipe dreams.
one concern, one comment here. Just keep Mano and Lerdo in mind. So-
Correct. Yeah, and high-speed rail, with their project, they're already planning mitigation along at those major intersections.
So the discussion would be, looking for council consensus here. The discussion would be to bring this back, with, added conversation and, visuals in regards to mitigations either at Cherry, Gold, Lerdo, all three of the above. And something that we can at least sink our teeth into a little bit more, potentially with some timelines on what would it take to get to those, having those done?
Timing and funding, correct.
Timing, funding, look. There you go. Are we okay with that, council? Yes.
Yes.
We'll continue this on then. Thank you very much, sir. Okay, that is all the items for the management reports for this evening. City manager comments and reports.
Comments, no reports.
No comments, no reports, no director comments and reports, I presume.
No director comments, no reports.
What do you know? We're gonna move into recess. We have two items on the closed session docket for this evening, conference with the real property negotiators. And then number two is conference with labor negotiators. I need a motion and a second to move us into recess, please.
I'll second.
Okay, I have a motion by Councilmember Proud, a second by Councilmember Espinoza. All those in favor with aye.
Aye.
Same sign opposed. Hearing none. Recess at 7:55 PM. I'm going to look to our city attorney to lead us out, please.
Thank you, Mayor. The council met in closed session regarding the agendized closed session items. All members were present and took no reportable action on either item.
Very good. With that said, there's nothing left on the docket for this evening. I need a motion and a second to dismiss.
No motion.
Okay, I have a motion by Councilmember Espinoza, a second by Councilmember Alvarado. All those in favor with aye.
Aye.